you're going to be performers. I mean, if you're talking to more than one person, or even if you're talking to one person, you're a performer. And so this is a skill that they don't normally teach, I don't think, but you're going to get a little micro version of it today. I normally do this in 8 hours, but we're boiling it down to a little less than an hour and a half today. I'm just going to leave out all the unimportant stuff and get to all the key stuff. So the very first exercise we're going to do is, I don't want volunteers. I'm going to pick 3 people, and one at a time, you're just going to come up here and you're going to introduce me with your name and what you're working on. And the first person we're going to give a huge, tell me what your name is.
Adriana.
Everybody, let's hear a hand for Adriana.
Hi everybody, I'm Adriana. I'm a first year Master's in Public Health student in Health Behavior and Health Education, and my team and I are working on the Fresh Fruits and Veggies project, which is an idea to provide a fruit and veggie service, and also it would be like buy one, get one. So kind of like the Tom Shoe model. We said if it can work for shoes, why can it work for food? And the big goal is to create healthier and more engaged communities.
Terrific. Let's have a hand. And now you. Now, hang on a second. I would like you to spend half as much time explaining what you're doing. And tell me what your name is?
Jody.
Jody. Everybody, a hand for Jody.
Hi, I'm Jody Cup. I'm a second year Master's of Public Health student here within the Department of Health Behavior Health Education. I am working with the Youth Empowerment Solutions, also known as YES, and it is a youth empowerment curriculum
Terrific. A hand. And now I want this guy, whose name is?
Ryan.
Ryan. A hand for Ryan, everybody.
Hi, my name is Ryan Gorley. I'm a second-year master's student at the School of Natural Resources and Environment. I'm working on Play It Forward. Play It Forward is a mobile fitness philanthropy app that gives users the opportunity to do good for others while doing good for themselves. Users earn points every time they engage in physical activity or make a health-related purchase at an affiliated retailer. Those points are then just converted into dollars that get donated to area nonprofits.
Thank you. I have nothing to teach these people. All right, those were all really good, and they were really professional, and you told me what you were after, what you were doing, and who you were, and I got a little idea of your personalities from that. But I didn't get engaged yet. So as a completely different exercise, I want to try something else. I want you, whose name is Beth, to tell me why you got in this business. Why are you a public health person instead of something else? I mean, what was the particular time that changed from when your life changed and you started doing this?
So I got into public health. I was originally applying to medical school, which is
Here?
No, just around, which is more curative, obviously medical based, and then realized that my personality and interests lie more in preventative health and wellness. So then found public health and nutrition.
You realized? How did you realize it? Where were you? When did this happen?
Yeah, it was a year off between college and deciding. So kind of just through shadowing doctors and then hearing more about public health.
Was there a particular moment?
I guess when my sister told me about the School of Public Health here that had a specific nutrition program, and just instantly thought that was a perfect combination.
Cool. Okay, and how about you? I know.
So I'm Matt Gibson, and you want to know how I got involved in this program? Or how?
Well, no, in public health instead of, basket weaving.
Yeah, so I'm with the Center for Entrepreneurship.
Right.
I came from industry, actually, spent some time in the startup world, and I really have a passion for helping people see their ideas out. I really enjoy teaching and working with people, and so that was some of the primary motivation behind coming here to the Center for Entrepreneurship and getting to work with the School of Public Health.
Okay, great. And while I'm pollinating, how about way in the back? I'm like Mr. Rogers here without the cardigan. How'd you end up in this business? What's your name? How did you, what is it? E. Cool. Tell me about the name. It's a cool name.
It's not in English.
Okay. So why did you go into public health?
I would say public health comes to me.
Really? How did that happen?
I studied pharmacy when I was an undergraduate, and I that's more a individual level practice and healthcare provider. then I think, then I want to see what it would be like from a public level, a population level about health here.
Okay, great. So that's two different ways for people to get to know you. And one of them is very efficient and public and gets the broad strokes out of the way immediately. And the other one is more personal, and it's a real different version. It's two different looks at the same person. Now, what I like about the second way is that I'm hearing a story about one person. I'm not hearing a story about a bunch of people. I mean, that has its place too. But I really connect with people when they're telling me something that's personal and is about their own life. And I think that there are ways to get elements of that kind of interpersonal connection, even if you're standing up in front of 100,000 people at the big house, giving the exact same speech with it echoing all over the place. So our goal is to try to bring those two things together. Yeah, I heard that story. So that's what we're here for. We're going to try to boil this down to an hour and a quarter, and if I do my job, we will make some progress toward that, and it will make all of you better, not just in this competition, but in every time that you're talking to a bunch of people, or even to one person. So I'm going to break this into 5 pieces. We did the introductions already, so we're right on schedule. And we're going to talk about preparing these pitches, delivering them, special consideration for pitches in general, and also I just added a few things today which are considerations for this particular competition, which is different from a lot of different kinds of pitches you're going to be making. And then you can ask me whatever questions you want. So, why am I here? Well, here's my story. I went on Jeopardy, and I met this woman named Mary Anderson, and she was in Hollywood. She read scripts for people. She was a story analyst, and she did it for a lot of big famous people. Mary worked for Robert Redford for a long time. And she was a super good story analyst, but she was not a good writer. And I asked her one time, why are you, what gives you the right to pronounce judgment on all of these screenwriters? And she said, well, I'm like an umpire in a baseball game. I don't have to be able to hit home runs, but I need to be able to call balls and strikes. So I'm not that good a public speaker. I talk too fast, I dress wrong, I'm not that organized, but I really know when it's working. And as a director, when I direct video or movies, I'm a lot better at writing stuff when I'm writing it and directing when I'm directing it. It's like two different hats. So what you need to do is, and it's great that you're on teams because you can help each other and you can bust each other. It's not just you in a mirror, So I'm hoping to be able to, we're going to take a couple of other little examples where I'm going to pick 3 people and have you give a real short version of your thing, and then we'll just sort of jointly critique it. So Mary Anderson got me in this business in a funny way. Here's some things to keep in mind in general when you're preparing. Nobody wants to hear a bad pitch. And there's this sense when you get up in front of people, there's an automatic built-in adversary relationship. But just remember that. They want so much for you to be good. And they're on your side, even though it doesn't feel like it. This is a huge one. Audiences can only look at one thing at a time, and they can only listen to one thing at a time. Now, I see a lot of people that have a ton of points on their slides. In fact, I break the rule myself a couple of times here where I got 5 points because I was too lazy to make separate slides. But they're either going to be looking at a slide or they're going to be looking at you. If they're looking at a slide, you want them to look at one point on the slide. And we're going to get into those later. Just remember that the audience can only look at one thing and think about one thing at a time. There's a salesmanship aspect to this that is unavoidable. Whether you're, especially for you guys, because you actually are trying to pry somebody's money out of their pocket. Just embrace it. Go with it. You're a salesperson, be a salesperson. But a very important thing to remember is you're often not pitching to the person that's in the room. It's a person behind that person or behind the person behind that person, which is why we're going to get into ways to really simplify and make memorable everything that you say and everything that you do. Remember, you're always talking to at least one person, unless you happen to be in a room with Bill and Melinda Gates, then don't worry about it. But even with him, there are probably people that have to sign the check. What's better, to bore your audience or to confuse your audience? What do you think? I mean, ideally you don't do either one. It's better to confuse them, because this is the way that this wonderful playwright Frank Gilroy put it. He said, if you confuse an audience, they will blame themselves, but if you bore them, they'll blame you. And especially when you've only got 5 minutes, if you blow past a couple of things, don't sweat it. It's your enthusiasm that's going to carry the day anyway. Now, I want to get into stories a little bit, and I'm going to tell you a true story that you haven't even heard this one yet. You guys know Vic Strecker? The reason I'm into school is that I grew up with this guy. So a few years ago, we went to New York for some big corporate thing, and we had an afternoon off, so I went to this place called Eataly. Do you know about Mario Batali's place? And it's a restaurant / food emporium / cooking school / high-end olive oil store. So I'm walking through the cheese department, and there was this cheese about this big around. It was Parmigiano Reggiano. And it was, you never see this thing in a big chunk, you see them in little pieces. So I walked over to it, and I thought, I want to find how much this thing weighs. So I went to pick the thing up, and I couldn't. They're really heavy. And I took my hands away, and there was oil all over my hands, like to the elbow. So I walked over to the first worker that I saw, and I said, how do I get this oil off my hands? And he said, you touched the cheese, didn't you? So he said, here's some paper towels that we keep for people who touch the cheese. And I wiped it all off, and I went elsewhere in New York. And half an hour later, Vic called me on my cell, and he said, hey, I went to Italy, like you said, and wait till you hear what happened. And I knew instantly he had touched the cheese, and he did. So this is a little story that has the benefit of being true. It's got a specific time and place. It's got a protagonist, me, and it's got a topper. A topper is when you bring in a specific thing that was not, there was no way the audience knew that was coming. It's called the Rita Rudner paradigm. She always tells a half a joke and then tells the real joke at the end. Like one is, it takes too long. I only have an hour and a half, don't I? Okay, it's Rita Rudner. Watch her and you'll learn a lot. So it's a really good idea to tuck in a little surprise at the end, like Vic's having made a fool of himself too. So tell a story in your talk. Make sure it's germane to the talk. And I mean super germane to the talk. And you have a million stories you can choose from because you know your subjects really well. It's just a matter of finding the right one and then honing it. The reason I think, I can defend this a little bit. You're going to be pitching to a lot of different kinds of audiences, and you don't really know, they're going to be interested in different things, and you don't know what those things are, but everybody likes a good story. So you're pretty safe with that. A guy named Bill Harley does a much better job of explaining all this than I ever could. So please Google Bill Harley's TED Talk Stories Out Loud, and in 13 minutes he will tell you much better than I could in hours and hours. Every story, whether it's a knock-knock joke or a War and Peace, has got 3 pieces. I'm going to save you, by the way, 2 years of film school at USC or UCLA. This is all I tell you. Everything else is like cameras and stuff, which I don't know, but you know. You know, hire a guy that knows cameras. You get your man up a tree. That's the first act. You get him down from the tree. Excuse me, I'm skipping down to the next one. You get him up the tree. You throw rocks at him for a while, and then you get him down from the tree. So even a knock-knock joke, knock, knock. Okay, we're up a tree. There's somebody at the door. Who is it? Who's there? You don't know. Tension. Metropolis. Metropolis, you won't open the door and let me in. So even a stupid knock-knock joke like that happens in 3 parts. What's a movie everybody has seen recently? What movie has everybody seen? Wizard of Oz. Dorothy's at home? Not recently. You've all seen it though, right? Yeah. Dorothy's at home, stability. She goes out, so this crazy stuff happens to her, and then at the end she's back home, but she has a new appreciation of her life at home. So that's why the story is worth telling. She goes out, has an adventure, comes back, and she's changed. We'll get into that a little bit more in a moment, how we're going to apply it to actual pitching. A story should have a protagonist in it, and it's easier to sympathize with one person than the entire continent of Asia. So if you can figure out a way to get a protagonist in this story, do it. The protagonist may be you, by the way. The story that you're going to tell might be like the stories that you guys told just now. You were doing one thing, something happened, and you did something else. But a protagonist is better than a class. The cheapest, fastest way to tell a story is to use bookending, which is you introduce something at the beginning of a talk, no matter how short, and you let it hang there. And then you tell anything else you want, and the audience will stay with you because they're going to stick around and find out what happened to that person. Even in a short, I think that this may apply to some of these pitches. This is more of a slightly longer thing, but it's a good, cheap trick. Now, here's how a pitch can be shaped like a story. You introduce a sympathetic character with a problem that needs to be solved. Now, this is going to be departing a little bit, I think, from the sort of syllabus, what do you call that thing?
You call this person the archetype, right? So a lot of times when you're thinking about your business model, you come up with the archetype. Who is your potential customer? That actually fits the sympathetic character.
That's fine. And if it happens to be, I mean, if you were actually in, Japan right after the earthquake, and you pulled somebody out of a boat, and that person has a name, yeah, use it. And then you can pitch your idea about better seismometers or something. You know, it's ideal if you've got an actual person. It doesn't have to be. It can be a made-up person. If you have a photo of that person, that's nice too. Get right to the problem. This may mean, as I said, going in a different order from the way that your thing is laid out, but I think that that's allowed, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Act 2, develop your theme. Say you went to Africa to work on something. What were your successes? What were your failures? Whom did you meet that laughed? Who cried? And build this thing to a cliffhanger. So the audience wants to know, you know, what is going to happen next to this person? I can't wait to hear what. Did you get the person out of the boat? Are you going to, are you going to go back? What's going to happen next? And then your third act is to explain how your work, your specific idea that you're trying to sell, is going to help, or at least has a good chance of helping that problem. And this morning I read through some of your outlines and drafts and things that have been sent in. And they already have this information. It's just not quite as concisely put into that order. But I think that this could work really, really well for you. Now, I want to get into language a little bit. The public health field is not the most directly communicative field. You guys fall into habits of using public health speakese. So I want to do a very quick lightning round of words that I see all the time in not just in this field, and see if you can translate them instantly for me into words that I personally think make you seem smarter than if you used words like, well, you know, we'll see, here's what they are. So just shout them out. Positively impact means? This help. Isn't that interesting? We got from 5 syllables to 3 in benefit to improve is 2, but help works almost every time. Negatively impact. You're catching on. Hey, you've done this before. Or harm. At this time. At this point in time. Now. At this particular point in time. On a daily basis. Cognizant. Very good. Shout them out. Instantaneous. Instant almost always works for instantaneous. Linkage. No, link. Swap it in sometime. It works. Now this one I'm cheating a little bit because I think this has a more specific meaning in methodology. But methods usually works just as well. Necessitate or require. Price point. Now this is so firmly entrenched in corporate speak now that this may be a losing battle. But I read somebody here used price point today, and I just mentally took out the point, and it worked for me. Physical activity. Or movement, motion, exercise, golf, tennis, sin. And what's great about this is it calls up a picture. You know, if you say tennis, if I say tennis, you can't not think about a person with a tennis racket. It's physically impossible. There are lots and lots of places when you can just swap in walk, jump, exercise, jump up and down, you know. Physical activity is a real, the bane of my existence. Prior to. Subsequent to. This is so easy. Reiterate. Utilize. Almost always works. Paradigm. Nobody knows what that word means. Don't ever use that word. Okay. So you get my idea. You can sound smart with short words and short sentences. And to me anyway, people that use long words and long sentences sound dumber because they sound defensive. They sound they're trying to hide the fact that they don't quite understand. I know I'm taking on all of academia with this, but you know, you got to fight something. Let's get to slides. Any questions so far? I'm going like 5 times the speed I do with the faculty, but it's working. We're getting through it. All right. That's true. God, you guys are so passive. I want some challenges.
Challenge him, come on.
Yeah, you'll have plenty of, yeah, maybe you do. Tell me. Somebody convince me. Paradigm shift means shift. All right. Slides very often have too many words on them. And I personally would rather listen to somebody talk than read words off a slide. I mean, there are times when it's very efficient to read a book or something. So look at your slides. Are there as few? Can you get it down? Can you boil it down any? Can you eliminate the slide altogether? You often can. The words that you do have up there should be extremely legible. And Rhonda, who works with Anne, is very good at, she goes into more detail about this, about which colors to use, contrasting colors and stuff. But I've got a couple of things that help. One of them is that lowercase is always easier to read than all caps. So unless there's a reason, like it's an abbreviation or something, you know, UMSPH, just go with initial caps. Try to be consistent with fonts. That's not always possible, but if you can do it, do it. This is a big one for me. In fact, I broke this rule myself in Martin's talk, actually, I just realized. Pictures of people doing stuff are always more interested than pictures of just people. And I've seen brochures in this business for the last 20 years that are always just people with perfect teeth, and they're just looking happy and healthy. I'd much rather see this person skydiving or hammering a nail or chasing a bus or you know, not brushing his teeth. You know, I hate to encourage you to look at advertising because I hate all advertising. But man, ad agencies have got it figured out, especially print, because they don't have the luxury of using cameras and using music and using all that other stuff. The picture has to sell everything. Just, you know, the more manipulative, the better. Look at those pictures and see how they do it. You know, we're going up against the people that we're trying to save the world from. If they have a weapon that works, let's use it too. Yeah, find arresting images. You should be able, you know, they should just grab your eye. I wish I had examples of these things, but you can find them yourselves. If you're not an expert at pictures, find one. And I'm really terrible at it, but I'm good at knowing out of 50 pictures, I can find one that I'm pretty sure works better than the other 49. If you don't have that ability, find somebody that's got it. Now, graphs and charts, you often need those things. And they tend to be very cluttered. A couple of rules, and this is just to intellectual honesty, is label your axes and define the units. And unless you have to, don't do that thing where it's 0 to 5,000 and then 5,000 to 6,000. So you make small, I mean, there are all sorts of ways to manipulate your graphs, you know. Just try not to do that because it gets people, they doubt you. They question your veracity and your scientific rigor. There shouldn't be more than one key takeaway per slide. Don't put 4 images on a slide because you can show 4 slides with 4 images in the same amount of time, and they're not, again, you can focus the audience's attention on one thing at a time. It's very much like film directing. You figure out what you want them to look at, and you make them look at it. Don't cheat. There might be a statistician in the room. Several of us have busted our own faculty on things that were just not quite honest. And I'm sorry, but don't use video in your presentations unless you've got a really good reason. And the reason not to use it, is the biggest one is the audio might not work when you're pitching. It happens all the time. I know you got these people going, making these great points, and then the poor AV guy is going down on his knees, behind, you know, with a butt crack showing, trying to plug in the wires. You don't have a butt crack. No. That's a big one. Not that bad anyway. But the other thing is, it takes the audience's focus away from you. I mean, you have a huge advantage over a video. You're in the room. You're 3-dimensional. People are going to sympathize with you and wonder about you and get involved with you. On a screen, no matter how well done it is, they're 2-dimensional and they're not there. So if you have an incredible clip of something like the earthquake I was talking about, use it. Otherwise, trust yourself. So that's preparing your talk. When you deliver it, if you can get to the room early, do. You can head off so many things, so many problems. Let's get into clothing. I've got a costumer friend named Louise Frogley, who, isn't that a funny name? Frogley. She sort of looks like a frog, too. Who was a great costumer. And a bunch of us were hanging around one time talking about who has the hardest job in Hollywood. And I said, oh, it's writers because you have to figure out the whole movie. And then a well-known director said, no, it's directors because you've got to have all these people working for you and you're answering the questions all the time. And Louise said, it's the costumer because with every new character who walks onto a screen, the audience has to feel a certain way about that person immediately, like in the first 5 seconds. And you don't have the luxury of writing a bunch of clever dialogue for them or showing them in their apartment or how they drive a car. It's just, there they are, there's their clothes, how do you feel about them? And when you are giving your pitches, that you know, it's unavoidable. That's going to happen to you. Dress better than me. Couple rules. Don't wear black. Ever. It looks bad on camera. It crushes, cameras crush black so that you will stop looking 3-dimensional. If you're on an iMac, I'm saying, or if you're getting videotaped as we are today, it turns everything that's gray and brown into just solid black. There's the floating head thing that happens sometimes too. If you happen to be unlucky enough to be in front of a screen, it makes the backlight that much brighter. No black, no scarves, rubs on the microphone. Hear that, people listening at home? And it looks like you're being strangled. The ideal for me is stylish comfort. You got to look at least like you paid some attention to what you were putting on that day. If you look like you're comfortable in in your own skin, make it match what you got, how you feel, and then like bring it up one notch, you're golden. Moving around, don't stand still. Actually, we had one of our faculty guys would shift his feet like this all the time, and he said, "Yeah, somebody told me this one time." After I was at a church, an old, like 100-year-old church on a squeaky board, he was going squeak, squeak, squeak the whole time, and he didn't notice it. So if you really feel uncomfortable moving, yeah, it's cool to bullet yourself in behind a podium or a lectern. But then you got to make up for it with hand gestures and with having an expressive face and having an expressive voice, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But best of all is, unless you're tied down to a microphone or something, just walk around. I mean, you see somebody interesting who's doing something, you just walk over to them. You know, people love that. It makes you seem like a human being, even if you're not. Voice. If you ever listen to NPR or any radio station, really, you'll notice that people modulate their voice a lot more on radio than in real life. And we've all had lecturers, we may have some right now. I mean, not this instant, I don't think, because I go up and down. That just put you to sleep because they get on a certain pitch and they never vary more than maybe a little bit above it or a little bit below it, and they don't realize that they're going on for hour after hour, and it just grinds you down. It's better to overmodulate your voice than undermodulate it. And the way to practice this is when you're driving someplace, or if you're at home and you don't mind if your roommates think you're insane, listen to the radio and say back everything that they're saying, matching their pitch. So you'll be like 3 words behind. Like I'll do right now. I'm going to talk a little bit and just repeat what I'm saying, okay? I'm going to talk about how I came here this morning, and the first thing that happened to me was I got on a plane, and see, it's not that hard. And it forces you into just being comfortable with your range going up and down all the time. It sounds weird, but it works great. This one, Vic busted me on after a talk, and I'm a singer too, beside playing the piano. And when I'm singing, I remember how to breathe right, which is you take a big puff that fills. Are you a singer? You just. Okay, good. She can tell you how to do it. You fill up like this. You take a little puff, and you fill up all the way to the bottom, and you can just talk for hour after hour after hour, and you've got the energy to keep every word you're saying interesting right until the very end of the sentence. Whereas what I used to do, and I still do it a little bit, is you get to this point, and then it's not that what your point is less interesting. It's that you literally don't have enough air to get the damn thing out, so your voice just goes, ugh. And then you start the next sentence, and it's great, and then it just trails off again. It just crushes the audience. So practice that. Practice yelling. You might be in a room with the microphone doesn't work, and you just got to remind yourself that you've got that gear you can shift into. Also, your voice is higher the louder that you talk, and that keeps people's interest too. Become British. Does anybody here have a British accent or an interesting accent from somewhere else? It works great. You're Dean Martin. I mean, Dean Martin. He told me, he started into this talk, and like I realized about 30 seconds that I had no idea what he was talking about, and I was just captivated. He's got such a great voice. And he went to like Oxford, right? So he's got that Oxbridge accent. It's a total cheat. It works perfectly. But even if you're not British, listen to British people and just steal it. All right. Boy, we're really getting through this. Tips and tricks. Do what I do. Get everybody up front. See, like these people, it's so easy for you guys to be working on your computers right now. It's just the easiest thing in the world because you're so far away, you know? I'm not engaged with you guys, and I'm with you guys. Maybe that's my fault. I suppose a better speaker can engage everyone, even the people in the back. But just try to get them down if you possibly can. Make them stretch once in a while. In fact, when you guys are going, doing the big pitch on March 14th, the judges are going to have a really hard job. They're going to have to sit there for hour after hour after hour. So, of course, we'll have time in between people. But just get people up and stretch. In fact, everybody stand up right now and stretch for 2 seconds. I insist. All of a sudden, you'll be more engaged and you'll be a better audience. Thank you very much. You can sit down now.
Thank you.
So please stay standing through the rest of the time. Practice your pitch every place. The car is the best place.
I used to practice singing all the time on the way to gigs because I was learning material all the time, and I had to just practice someplace. And people always thought I was crazy, and they look at you. But now everybody's on the phone anyway, so it's no big deal. So they think you're on the phone, and you're saying 3.5% of the people in Nairobi are, just do it. Bathroom, office, walking on the street. Now, this one, if you don't pay attention to anything else in this slide, which should have been 4 separate slides, by the way, do a speed through. And the way this works is, once you've got the whole thing learned at the normal pace, just like the day before and even the hour before, get your team together, or if it's just one person, just go through the whole thing as fast as you possibly can, especially if it's been a while since you've met or pitched or something. And you won't believe how much it just puts all your words right at the tip of your tongue because you just heard them. It's almost like a muscle memory thing. Your mouth has made those words and made those points, and the linkages will just be right there. I wouldn't do it too much or it'll become mechanical. In fact, we've had people on the faculty that sounded a little bit mechanical for that very reason. In fact, I think the artificiality...
Just that within their own teaching, student experience, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in these one particular situations, that has been known to happen.
Okay. So yeah, do a speed through. I think it's a really good idea. Now, this is just something worth thinking about when you're an audience in general. A, sit up front when you can because it helps the speaker. Impending disasters happen all the time. Here's one that happened to my wife. She was backstage being the celebrity handler for a big a thing called the Shadow Conventions, where a bunch of big political people, this is before Franken was a senator, and her job was to get them on stage at the right time. We had a script and a headset and everything. So Al Franken goes to the bathroom because he was next. We didn't know where he was. And he came out of the bathroom and was headed for the stage, and there were like 1,200 people and press out there. And my wife grabbed Al by the collar of his neck and went, yeek, and pulled him back off stage and whipped him around and pointed at his crotch. And his zipper was down, and his pants, his shirt tail was actually dangling out like an elephant's trunk. And so he quickly stuffed it back in and zipped it up, and she shoved him out onto the stage. Well, you guys can help each other. Not necessarily that dramatically, but these opportunities will come up from time to time. Please help each other out and just, pepper in the teeth, wrong clothes, toilet paper on the shoe, just do it. When you hear other people giving presentations of any kind, whether it's somebody teaching a class or a stand-up comic or other people pitching ideas to each other in practice, stop thinking with one brain. There's the brain that's listening to what they're saying, and there's the brain that's paying attention to the performance. All the stuff that I'm bringing up now, plus other things, you're going to notice ways that people are doing things that are good and you can steal them, or they're bad and you can avoid them. And it's not that hard to take maybe 20% of your brain and make it the judgmental note-taking side, and the other 80% can focus on content. I think that's true in classes too, isn't it? I mean, there's some teachers that are just great at it. Steal from them. Special considerations for pitches. I had to pitch a lot of movies at the studios with my wife, and that's when I first found out about the pitching to the suit behind the suit, because at my level of writing, I never could get in the room with a studio head. And I might be like 4 levels down from the person that can actually write a check, and these guys hear lots and lots of pitches every single day, so you go nuts trying to get past the suit in the room to the suit behind the suit behind the suit. Now, one way that I pulled it off was my wife and I were pitching a musical called Nikki about Santa Claus's childhood. It's a good idea, isn't it? They've still got it, it's in turnaround. It's been like a lot of years. So we knew we had to get the suits out of their office because we needed a piano, because I was going to play the songs and my wife was going to sing it. It was this whole musical about Santa Claus's childhood. We'd written all the songs. So we had to get the suits across the studio to where there was a piano on a rehearsal stage where they were rehearsing Noises Off that Kill Burnett was in, and there were songs in it. So we had to get these guys out of their office into a golf cart and drive them across the studio. And all the way across on the golf cart, we pitched them the story. We got them into the room, played the songs, da-da-da-da-da, we did the whole thing, and they bought it. So I'm going to get to that point in a little bit about getting people out of their comfort zone. Another way, some guys that I know sold a show called Johnny Bago. Did anybody ever see it? It was like a 6-episode sitcom. And the way they sold this was, it was about a guy who goes around the country in a Winnebago and he's Italian. So they told 3 studio heads, one at a time, to come down in front of their building at a particular time. And they pulled up in a Winnebago, put them in the Winnebago, and they had an Italian chef like a Mario Batali level, cooked them an Italian lunch while they drove around town and pitched the rest of the story. And they sold that on the same day. In fact, it was a bidding war. So be prepared for that stuff. I got ahead of myself. Pitches are different from a speech because they're shorter, they're designed to sell, and they're often one of many. And here are ways that you can beat that. Know everything that your project is. Every detail, there should be at least one person up there that can answer any question. So even though you're not going to be able to get it all into 5 minutes or 6 minutes or 7 minutes, they're going to ask you questions, and make sure you're prepared to answer every single one of those. But picking the right ones to fit into the 5 minutes, that's the hard part, and I can't help you with that all at once, although individually I think I'll have an opportunity to do that. I knew I was going to be in a building with Ray Romano because I was playing the piano and he was the guest of honor that night. And my wife and I had a thing we were going to sell to him. We thought it was a slam dunk. And I knew how long the elevator ride was because I timed it. And this is an actual elevator pitch. And so I practiced thing over and over and over again to the word. This is one where I didn't improvise a word. It was an actual script top to bottom. And when we got to the bottom floor, I hit the last syllable of the last word of the pitch. And he said, you know, I'm doing a project that's pretty similar to that, but I got to admire the way that you timed that on the elevator. And I was able to get a meeting with his producer because he remembered that particular thing. So you guys know you're going to have a hard stop after, what is it?
7 minutes.
7 minutes. We had hard stops for our faculty people, and at least half of them went over. Now, I think you're going to actually cut your mic off if you go over 7 minutes, or be prepared to. You'll have we decided all this stuff yet about the cards?
We'll probably do something like that.
There will be rules, but make sure you time the thing. And if you are going over, talk faster, get somebody else who can talk faster, or better yet, cut out the weakest point that you're going to make and just focus on the strong ones. This is a pretty good rule for any pitch, which is the opening and the closing. People are going to forget the stuff by the end of the pitch that happened in the middle, but they won't forget the first thing you said because that will introduce you to them, and the last point that you make should be easy to remember because it's the last thing they hear and it's the strongest point. Images I already talked about, but memorable words and phrases are really important, and I've seen some really good ones in yours that I've seen so far, and I've seen some that really put me to sleep. So I want to go through those in specifically with you that have signed up to get with me. But can anybody think of the 3 buzzwords that will live forever from Jerry Maguire? Show me the money. Have me at hello. And you complete me. Does anybody not remember those 3 phrases? I guess it's been a while. Okay. 1 or 2 of those things, they're going to remember those. And this happened a couple of times to us. We were talking about spillover. Remember that? Mm-hmm. The concept of spillover. Yeah. Where the first person that spoke talked about unintended consequences in areas where they were trying to get some kind of intervention going. And that same concept kept turning up in other talks. And so now I played back all the ones at the end of the day, and the thing I remembered was spillover, not necessarily the other ones. Those buzzwords are worth gold. One of the guys was talking about thin films. What are they called? Microfilms? Biofilms, thank you. And he made up a story on the spot about a boy and a girl in a swimming pool that he saw that morning where they sort of were at opposite ends of the pool, and then they came together in the middle of, and it was great because this guy hardly spoke English, but he had a very strong Chinese accent. But the story was so beautiful. He said they came together in the middle of the swimming pool, and then suddenly they went apart, like 2 electrons. And I thought, what was going on? Well, it turned out that this guy hadn't brushed his teeth yet because the biofilms were all over there, and she took a whiff of his breath and ran the other way. But, I've forgotten everything else that he told me, but that image of him looking down from his hotel room and picturing this, coming together and going apart, I just remembered it after all this time, and I think that that might work for you too. Now, you've got teams, right? What's the biggest team? 7 people, maybe? Yes. How many do you have? 10. Okay. And the smallest team, there's a duo, right? You're just you? 2 people. Okay. You need to decide who's going to talk, and I think there are 2 approaches you can go with. One is to have just one person do the whole pitch, and if you got somebody that just knocks the socks off everybody, have that person do the whole pitch, but make sure that the rest of the team is identified by superpower. So this can all happen at once where you can go to the team and say, this person is the statistician, this person has been to this area, this person is from that area, this person knows how to operate a microscope, or whatever it is. And make it clear that everybody contributed to the thing, but that way, you're establishing the legitimacy of the whole team without relying on everybody talking, some of whom may not be good presenters. You know, not everybody's good at it. You know how at the Oscars, 7 people will come up and there's this horrible scrum where they're all trying to fight to the mic and then the band plays them off? You got to choreograph this stuff. Just like choreographing bows in a theater. Who goes on first? Who stands where? I mean, an audience can't help, even though they're not supposed to be watching your performance, they're thinking, those guys, you know, don't have it together even well enough not to trip over each other when they walk on the stage. Somebody was standing in front of somebody else. I mean, choreograph this thing like a ballet. Now, when you're not speaking, do you know who Paul Anka is? Good. He's this singer-songwriter who wrote a bunch of hits back in the 50s and 60s, and my buddy is his piano player. They play all over the world, and he does the same show every night. The band has up to 10 to 15 people on it, and they hear Paul Anka do his exact same gags every night. And Anka will watch the tapes after the shows and call everybody together in the green room and say, you guys weren't doing your courtesy laughs tonight. The point is, they have to laugh at every single joke as if they've heard it the first time. And convincingly, because you can't count on the audience watching Anka all the time. They might be watching somebody else. And you know, if the second trombone player is back there texting, it reminds the audience, this is a lame joke that he probably tells every night. The illusion of this being the first time you've ever pitched this and the most excited you've ever been, even though you've been doing it nonstop for 8 months, is absolutely essential. If you seem uninterested in your talk, they're not going to be interested in your talk. To that end, part of your choreography is figuring out where people are going to look. Usually, I would say, look at the audience. But in this case, I think what you want to do is act as if you are just as interested in the slides and the speaker as the audience, as you hope that the audience is. So when the point that you wrote, you know, your hard-earned research earned this graph, look at it as if that's the first time you see that this is like an incredible graph. You know, yeah, I understand. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I think it'll help you seem engaged. Look at the speaker, not the audience, most of the time. The other reason not to look at the audience is it'll look like you're trying to figure out if you're being judged. Like, God, that guy looks really bored in the third row. You know, I think we're bombing up here. It's much better for you to fake excitement looking at the speaker than to actually recognize that somebody is not excited. Now, for this particular pitch, this is kind of tricky because you guys are all competing with each other, right? Like you're all trying to beat each other. And suppose that I've made some really good point, and the first person on the day does that thing. Well, the second one will too, and the third one will too. And after the second one, it's going to be really boring. So I don't quite know what to tell you here. I think the general organizational principles are good. I think that telling stories are good. But if every person comes up and says, let me introduce you to Ndugu. Ndugu has guinea worm. And then the next person gets up and says, this person has tooth decay. You know, they're going to say, oh, these guys are all playing from the same playbook. It almost might be worth getting together and coordinating. The way that stand-up comics will, when there are 8 people on the bill, they get together and make sure nobody tells the same joke twice.
We'll be able to help with that in our practice pitch.
Oh, because we will have heard them all.
Yeah. So if we start to see too much similarities, we probably would advise.
Yeah.
You guys are all telling the same story.
Okay.
I doubt will happen based on the variety of projects.
Yeah.
That would be hard to actually accomplish.
Okay.
Unless they came together and coordinated, like I'll tell you.
Yeah.
How will you be deciding who gets to go first or last, or if,
It will be sign up.
on the actual day of the pitch?
No, you'll know ahead of time what your time slot is.
Okay, and that will be randomly assigned?
We haven't figured that out yet. I mean, one of the problems is probably some people have time commitments on Friday morning. So what we'll probably ask is, when aren't you available? And then we'll do it relatively randomly, because that is probably an important consideration.
Deviating from the distributed rules, when I first saw that whole outline, I realized that it had a very academic approach. And in fact, there's the rule of public speaking, which is tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. I just don't think applies to these pitches. In fact, I don't think it should apply ever, because it takes the element of surprise out of it. I love cold openings. I love opening just out of the blue. You know, I was, you know, freezing to death in my tent in Antarctica when I saw this thing happen, and I ended up with this project. You can start any place in the story. if the whole thing hangs together, don't sweat it so much that you're telling things out of order. I think that the first point in there is to get up and explain what your project, I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Here's my project, here's what it's going to do. Don't necessarily do that. It's very formulaic. There are all sorts of ways you can open that are not opening with the opening. You can get back to that very quickly, but you can only have one chance to grab their attention, and it's the first sentence out of your mouth. The conclusion of the suit behind the suit, and the content. I mean, picture yourself being a judge in one of those things. You're going to be hearing, 15, 16 pitches in a row. You know, they're all going to run together. Nobody can remember all that stuff, even if you got the notes. But somebody that's enthusiastic and seems like they know what they're doing, that's going to be remembered, and that will be carried back to the person that they need to take it to, who can actually write the check, which is often the case. I guess that's it. That's it for that part. In fact, I think that's it for the whole talk. Thank you very much. Applause, please. So that was an hour. We got a half an hour. And what I want to do is, I want to run a couple people through this. Some quick, I'm going to direct a few people and give them some notes, and you'll sort of see how I work and how this can be made to work. Does anybody have any questions before we start that? Not one. Good. Yes?
So you're saying we can't include, we should not be including video in terms because there might be audio issues? So should we not include any audio either?
This is getting to the room early. This is good because you're getting to the room 2 months early. You find out about that stuff. You've got video, I take it?
Audio.
Or audio, really?
I just thought of it.
Oh, good. All right. Well, if it's
I don't see why you couldn't. I mean, it's going to be in the SPH auditorium.
Oh, yeah, that's
So
true.
that should not be a problem. I mean, part of this is that if you're, in the future, if you're pitching, you never know what equipment you will encounter when you get there. So you kind of have to be ready for all of the above.
oh, okay.
Are you just gonna be pitching to like you and Vic and Matt, or is the whole SPH or like the rest of the students gonna be here? Like who's exactly?
So the morning of the 14th, every team will will be pitching in front of a panel of judges, which will not be myself and Matt and Monty. It will be the corporate sponsor, Sam Shaker from Northrop Grumman, a VC, a potential athlete celebrity. So your audience is not the school public health in the morning. And then from that, we're going to select 5 finalists. And the 5 finalists will present at the big event in the afternoon from 3 to 5. And from those 5, the 3 first place winners will be selected and announced. So you will be only pitching to a panel of judges. No one else will be in the room. But the other advantage to that is if you are one of the 5 finalists, you'll have done your pitch at least once in the room in which you will do it in the afternoon. So the familiarity of the room, and plus you have access to that room now, right? You can go in and there. If when Monty says choreograph it, you could probably, don't tell Jim Kennedy this, sneak into that room, stand on the stage, get a sense of that stage. Where are there squeaky boards that may distract you or your teammates from talking? Every space is awkward, so go familiarize yourself with that space so you're as comfortable as a team as you possibly can when you're in that space. Yeah.
Sorry, which room is that?
It's the main auditorium, SPH 210 something. It's the largest auditorium in our building. So,
Now, another point about the early round and the finals, so to speak, is they're going to take place in 2 different places. I mean, one's going to be in front of 2 or 3 judges, and the other's going to be in front of a whole bunch of people, right?
well, 5 to 6 judges. And,
Yeah.
and the second, there'll be a studio audience.
Right. So the version that you should work up is the version in front of everybody. Because if you work up some kind of intimate, small little pitch for people across a desk, and then you take that thing into a vast auditorium, it's not going to get past the first row. So it's better to be too big in a small room than too small in a big room.
Right. If the room is the same, the audience is what will just be adding people in.
It feels very strange. I mean, when I first had to start auditioning people for roles, it's just you and the casting director and maybe the director of photography and one actor. And they're doing these huge things that they would do on a stage if it's for a live stage thing. And I was sort of taken aback. I thought, it's just the two of us here, what's the big deal? But they got to do it the way it's going to actually be performed. Now with film and video, it's different because you might be in close-ups all the time. And so you might want to audition them where you're this close to them because you want to see exactly how much their eyelids move, But all your rehearsals should be as if you're going to be on stage in the finals, just doing a great job. More questions? Yes.
I was just, as I was working on this outline and thinking about all the things that will be kind of graded on, and trying to crunch that all into 5 or 7 minutes, I feel like, have to be going 100 miles an hour to get through everything. And so, I don't know how, I guess I still working out how to approach that, and really, and then we also have to add on the stories and, well, we don't have to, but so where's the balance? And I guess
So go back to Monty's slide where it says you have to know all the answers to those questions, but that doesn't mean that your pitch will include everything in that outline. So what you want to prepare for is the most compelling part of what you're trying to pitch to the judges, but then they have 8 minutes to ask you questions, right? So they're going to ask you questions about the pieces that are missing, most likely, but you're going to have those in your back pocket, right? So you need to engage them enough where they start asking you incredibly interesting questions, and then get to the other stuff that you already know.
Great.
I don't know that much about the venture capitalist world, but my guess is nobody's going to actually write you a check based on the 5-minute thing anyway. They're going to want to pick your thing apart, and they're going to want to hear about it, and they're going to want to talk to every member of your team and make sure you don't have any dead weight in it, and that you know what you're doing. And that might be a process that goes on for hours or days or weeks or months or years. But you're never going to get to that process if you don't nail them in the first 5 minutes. So that's why stuff that seems incredibly important to you and just an absolutely essential element of the project, you can just leave it. You just assume that they're going to get to, if it's any good and they're interested, they're going to dig into that stuff later anyway. And then you said something revealing, I think, when you said you want to add in stories. I'm not talking about adding in stories. I'm talking about taking your content and putting it in the form of a story. So even if it's just you went someplace to research something, rather than say, the findings of our research trip were bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. I want to hear, we got off the plane and I immediately realized, man, this is the worst humidity I've ever felt in my life. I took 6 steps and I was drenched in sweat. Well, picture what happens when you're out here and this particular microbe breeds in high humidity. You've sort of said the same thing that way and put me in the story as you would have said if you said it's 97%, which gives you a discomfort point of blah, 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 blah. I could have told that more efficiently if I had time to work it up, but you've got 2 more months. Anybody else? All right, so this time I am going to ask for volunteers because I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. But does anybody want to just get a little 2-minute clinic and given a quick talk? Somebody who has sort of already been chosen or planning to be the main spokesperson of your team. Anybody? Because you better pick somebody or I'm going to pick somebody for you. Yes, you're hired. Remind me your name. Anna. Anna, a hand for Anna. Come on up. So just start as if you had about 5 minutes and you're introducing things. And by the way, you don't have to rewrite your whole thing into stories. Do it the way you were going to do it anyway. This is more just about ways to be a good performer.
So I realized that making a breast pump is going to be very difficult at the University of Michigan, only because I have undergraduate engineers to work with. And if you look at the picture right here, you'll see that these large breasts were something that many undergraduate males kind of strayed away from during my pitch to them in February. So I had a very hard time finding a team, and I don't even know where to go with this. This is supposed to be a
I think
fun.
everybody's in right now.
Everybody's in. That's good.
As you can tell,
You had me at boob.
How did you engage undergraduates?
Yeah.
still working on that. But as you can tell by our male members here on the stage, we did find someone, and we are currently working to create an innovative breast pump that will increase breastfeeding rates for working women in the U.S.
Terrific. That's a really good opening. Let's see. What else do I have to say?
I don't know what to do with this, and I feel like everyone who gets up here ends up doing this, and I don't want to do that.
And actually, honestly, one of my advice is start walking. Because one of the things, allow your to move, because that handles hands better, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is. You know, this is a great one for a cold opening, possibly with an image. You know,
This is gonna be an
what is the image?
I made a project thing 2 days ago. It's these paper plates with nipples on them, and it says liquid gold breast pump. It's like a thing that we were using to show the undergrads what our new breast pump would look like.
Cool.
But it's very, it looks great.
I already.
So we have a picture of our table where there's a current breast pump that our protagonist is using right now, and this thing, these breasts made out of paper plates. And you can just see that we're very excited about it, but there's nobody around our table. It is just empty.
Great. Okay. Great. There's your opener. That's
our opening
That's a terrific image. And then, yeah, think of ways to get into that, very, very quickly with setting it. I mean, where
One sentence, yeah.
doesn't be one sentence.
Yeah.
Where did this take place? Where was this room?
The league, Michigan League.
Yeah.
It was about 50 people or so,
Mhm.
mostly undergrads, freshmen, and sophomores. It was wooden panels, 7 tables, 7 teams presenting. Ours wasn't listed on the piece of paper because we were new.
Okay, so that's good. You get sort of it's like a pitch from hell
Yeah.
story, you know? You get people on your side immediately. So yeah, feature that, you know, say, you may notice there are no people around this table. Let me tell you why. Or,
They're gonna see those breasts and they're gonna know why.
well, lay it out for them, you know? Okay, so let's take it again. You're going to walk on, you're going to applaud, and you're going to do that the way that you just did, except now we know what the picture's going to be.
Okay, yeah, so there's a picture. All right.
Okay, and here's Anna. Everybody, Anna, yay!
So take yourself back to freshman year of college. You're an engineer, you're male. And what you see in front of you is this table right here.
All right, good. So this is already way better. And you're moving better and you're speaking better and everything because now you're in the moment. I have a recommendation for you, which is to save that slide until when you tee it up. In fact,
Would it be like a dark screen?
something else. So it allows you to hit them with that actual image. You know, you get up there, you tell them, they're thinking that they're in their mind's eye at this point. They're male engineer, and then they see the picture, bang, and then there's the picture. And you get a big laugh, you know. You don't have to, this is a way of like covering it up a little bit and going, ta-da! So for that particular one, I think it worked really well. Great, let's have a hand for Anna for being the first brave one. All right, who else wants to make a fool of yourself? 2 of us have done it so far, and Anne. Come on, we had a female, how about a guy? Oh, come on, I'm going to pick somebody. I'm going to pick you. All right. And your name was? Sishan. A hand for Sishan.
So can I ask you guys to imagine just a picture up right now?
Yeah.
So the picture that I guess I would try to maybe show first is maybe a comparison picture. So it would be a picture of an infant in a neonatal intensive care unit at the University of Michigan hospitals, and then a newborn baby in rural India.
Okay.
That's kind of what we would say. So I guess I would start off with, hi, my name is Zishan, and I'm working with RIME, and our goal is to bring diagnostic critical care capability to places that don't have it. And so if you look at this baby that was born in America, I screwed up.
That's okay. All right, we're going to try it again. Just slow it down and talk twice as loud. Just make those 2 adjustments and nothing else. I don't really care what you say. Okay. We're going to walk on again. All right, everybody, here's Sishan. Yay!
Hi, my name is Zishan. I'm working with RIME, and our goal is to bring diagnostic critical care capability to places that don't have it.
Even slower, same thing. Start from the top. Twice as loud, really loud. I'm putting you on the spot.
Hi, my name is Zishan. I'm working with RIME, and our goal is to bring diagnostic critical care capability to places that don't have it.
I already love it. I mean, it's totally artificial, but the very fact that you got louder sounds like you believe what you're saying. It's so stupid that such a mechanical trick would have this effect. But I don't know about you guys, but I was convinced that 3rd time. Okay.
It also forced you to look up. Yeah. The first 2 times we were looking down.
Uh-huh.
We were very confident.
Yeah. Okay, great adjustment. That's it.
That's it.
Yep. See, Yeah.
is, Zishan, I would recommend not putting your pictures side by side, but first show the image of the American intensive care unit, and then the next slide, the next image should be of the rural India clinic, no clinic.
We have fake names for our babies.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Jason, and I mean, I think in some ways that one of the things that we worked on with the faculty is that a lot of times they did a lot of these side-by-side shots, and what we found over time is that those side-by-side shots, you lose the impact of both pictures because they kind of cloud together. But I think if you did it one at a time, and then especially with the picture you care most about being second, that's the image you're going to leave the judges with.
Yep. Now, there are two ways to do it. One is first picture, second picture. The other is first picture, add second picture. And that second way can really be great, especially if you can, if the two, this is two babies, right? If they happen to be like more or less in the same position, even, like if, for example, there's nothing wrong with flipping a slide to make them look more like each other, unless the words are backwards, But to go from one to both can be a really powerful way to do that. Yeah, that's a great note. Okay, who else? We got plenty of time. Let's get everybody. Okay, you're next. And your name was?
John Richardson.
John, a hand for John.
Hygiene-demic. It's what we hope to achieve, and it's the platform by which we hope to achieve it. So Hygiene-demic is a company that we are creating, that incorporates three different things: social networks, disease surveillance, and rapid home delivery of care packages for the sick. Our goal is to essentially reduce the spread of sickness through an increased awareness of sickness in your local social networks, and also to provide a venue for providing care packages to your friends and getting care or needed medical supplies at home.
Okay, what are you planning to have on the screen at this point?
I don't know.
I like this. I like the word hygiene-demic a lot. I think it's very clever, and so like what I'm picturing is visually, I would want to see the word in huge, really cool font across the screen, where the hygiene part is in one font and the demic is in another font. And so it's a portmanteau, even like an animation where they go bing like that together at the front.
Right.
But so that's a little like ad agency trick, but this is an example. It's just asking for a story to me, because everybody knows what an epidemic is, and so you can draw on that. So like this would be a good one for a map that shows disease going and swooping. I mean, with an animation maybe, or just a really good image, and then figure out a visual way to show the opposite of that happening, like an eraser, erasing it, or I mean, this is where visual artists really earn big money, in this area. I don't really know how to do it, but although you were very efficient with explaining it, I really want to hear an example of this. Suppose that it were as easy that using hand sanitizers spread as fast as the bubonic plague in 1600. Start with a grabbing fact. In 1600, the bubonic plague knocked off so many people in London with snitch time. What if the use of cleaner drinking water moved just as fast as that did? Although I really like your idea, I just want to ground it in reality somehow. It sounds a little bit. Well, you know the business better than I do. How would you tell that story? What's the poster child for a hygiene-demic? What would it be? What particular behavior?
The flu that's been flying through our community.
Yeah, I guess there are two ways I could describe it. One way would be more of describing kind of this pandemic and likening it, the hygiene-demic, to a pandemic, and the other approach would be describing an individual. For those who have had the flu, they would really be able to empathize with this, but they're flat on their back, they're sick, they've been throwing up all day, and they need something to help them with their fever. They can call up, Hygiene-demic and get some medicine delivered to their home in 30 minutes.
Okay, good. This is a great way in. This is a great way in. Because I was suddenly sympathizing with you. I was thinking, I know exactly what it feels like to have been in that situation. And I think about, the damn person that gave me that bug. And I think about how that bug came flying in the window or from off a handshake or off a drinking glass or something. And then I want to draw a parallel between that and what if the solution to that thing came as easily as the problem in the first place? In fact, the words "what if" can be really, really powerful words because you're talking about things that are situations contrary to fact. This isn't around yet. Drawing a parallel between how sickness can spread epidemically and how the cure can spread epidemically. Think of visual ways to maybe make that happen and tell a little story that involves a protagonist. In this case, it's the audience. Think about the last time you were lying there in bed and such happened. What if? That's a way in.
Great.
A hand for John. Okay, we got 8 minutes. So I need 3 more victims. Megan, a hand for Megan.
I'm officially being pushed way out of my comfort zone right now.
Good.
So that's good. All right, so our project is called the U Project. And the U Project is really actually all about vulnerability and the acceptance of being imperfect humans like we all are. So our phone application really is to promote strong mental health and wellness through mind, body, and spirit. And through little daily inspirational quotes and do's, we hope to inspire everyone to accept themselves.
Keep going. Walk around. Inspire us.
Inspire everyone to accept themselves and to want to give back in their communities and to enhance connection. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, good. Now that was a stupid note that I gave you because you had no motivation to walk around, and yet once you started doing that, your eye contact was twice as good with everybody in the room. Even just that little bit of motion sort of knocked you off your spot, and you felt more comfortable too. And by the way, the idea that you're using what was the word you used? Vulnerability. This is a cheap plea for sympathy, but it'll work every time. Just say, this is about vulnerability, which, by the way, which I'm feeling quite a bit of right now, It's okay to say that you're nervous. Of course you're nervous. The audience will sympathize with you instantly. It would be a force if that weren't part of your talk already, but it's quite organic. So I would totally use that. Okay, one more. Chandra.
I just want to start with a story, okay? So, this is a 28-year-old physician traveling in
Take your hand out of your pocket and start again.
this is a 28-year-old physician traveling in car on I-94 on a day, Thanksgiving Day. So he was traveling and he was near the airport. Suddenly, his car got into accident with the truck. Next, he was in emergency. Okay. So, what happened? Why it happened? So, this physician was not sleeping well. He had a sleep apnea. So, he was not diagnosed. So, he didn't know. So, later he was diagnosed sleep apnea. That was the reason for him to get into the accident.
Okay, you had me at 94. Yeah. The locality is brilliant. Everybody in the room is going to know where that is. Yes. Everybody's been sleepy in a car. And that little delay there, I was thinking, if you don't tell me what happened to this guy, I'm going to reach in and pull the words out of your mouth. So that was wonderful. You're not talking about Steve Gradwell, are you?
So, why is this important? Why is this important to this public health challenge? So, yes, the CDC has recognized sleep as an epidemic. So our goal is to come up with an app to educate everybody and modify behavior, sleep behavior, and the importance of sleep and how they can protect themselves from all these calamities. And goal is to take it to healthy 2020 goal to make this whole world better.
Terrific. That's a really good opening. I think, it doesn't have to be a totally unique story, but it's a true story, right?
True story.
Yeah.
It happened.
Yeah. Well, I think that was great. A hand. All right. You know, that hand in the pocket thing that's epidemic. Everybody does that. That happens all the time. And the funny thing is, you're a very good hand when you talk user. You use them really well, but no matter how good you are, it can't do you any good if you're down here, you know. So if you have to sew your pockets shut, do it. But just, you know, and you're moving around a little bit. I don't know if that was quite the right thing for you. You might be more of a stand behind the podium kind of guy. I'm not sure. I'd have to work with you a little bit more. But yeah, once you took your hand out of your pocket, you just came alive. So I know it sounds like a lot of cheap manipulative tricks, and you know what? They are. But you're not doing yourself a favor if you don't learn them, because all of the wonderful research and stuff that has gone into these things will just die at the footlights if you can't figure out, you know, the same tricks that everybody else uses to get the message across, get it so it's memorable, understandable, and conveys your enthusiasm. And I know that you guys are enthusiastic about this stuff, or you wouldn't be here and you wouldn't be doing this project at all, because this is all like extracurricular, right? So just make sure that enthusiasm comes across. And I guess I'm going to meet with some of you guys individually, which is where I really would like to get into the structure of your talks and stuff. But as far as just the sort of coaching and the sharing of cheap tricks, that's my spiel. And I brought it in at 90 seconds early. If there's any question about anything, you got a minute and a half. Yes.
How long will you be at the University of Michigan? So we meet with you tomorrow once, and then are you gone?
No, I'm here on Monday too, part of the day. I think I got the morning.
And then you'll be here probably again in February.
Yeah.
So we are bringing Monty on, hopefully, fingers crossed, as a storyteller in residence here at the School of Public Health. And some of his role will be to continue the training he's been doing with our faculty, but then also to do more things like this with students, some coaching, some practice sessions that will happen over the next year. So my hope is to bring him in at least for one of the times in February. We'll have to see about that. Monty actually doesn't live in Michigan, even though I grew up in Michigan, and he doesn't live in Michigan for a very specific reason. He hates the cold weather. So asking him to come back in February would be maybe cruel and unusual punishment, having seen how cold it is right now. But we'll figure it out. So I think I haven't talked to you about this, but I am wondering if there isn't time to do a second practice pitch specifically with you, some more one-on-one after your practice pitches, and you get feedback from Vic, myself, Matt, and a few others internally in February to then take it to the next level.
And sometimes it really is a matter of you know, running your talk over and over and over again, or just even a little particular piece of it. The timing of slides and the way that your words hit the slides, for example, is really important. If the slides get to a point before you make it, it can knock out 90% of the impact of both the image and the words. So it's almost like choreographing a 5-minute dance routine. And I love working on this stuff.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.